Welcome to Hammerspace Recording. My name is Troy Nababan, and today I'm going to show you how I like to mic a guitar amp in the studio. If you are in a hurry, grab yourself a Shure SM57, poke it somewhere around where the dust cap of the speaker and the cone meet, around the front of the grill, and it's probably going to sound pretty good. So how do we get to that position? There's a lot of things that we can go into great detail about, and I might do that in a series of videos over the next little while. But today I want to talk about the choice of mic and the specific position and why that affects the sound. There are so many different variables when it comes to recording guitar, whether it's the guitar itself, the speaker that you're using, the amplifier that you're using, the space that you're recording in, what strings are you using, what pick you're using, what microphones you're using. Are you recording through certain types of microphone preamps? Are you recording into tape? Are you recording on digital? It can go on and on and on. It really depends on how nerdy you want to get with that, and I don't want to make this be a really massive video, so I think the main things I'll concentrate on today are the mic choice and the mic position. So let's start with the microphone. I mentioned before a Shure SM57, which looks a little something like this. I'm not sure if the camera will focus. This is not a particularly expensive mic. If you're into recording at all, it's probably not a bad idea to get one of these. You can get them here in Australia, they're about like $200 brand new. You can get them secondhand in varying conditions for probably less than $100. So I don't know, in USD, $50, I'm assuming. An SM57 is a dynamic microphone, and more specifically a moving coil microphone. They are by design known as being very robust microphones that can take a beating, like specifically a 57. I think you can like hammer nails in with it, and you can run it over with trucks and all that sort of things, drop it, throw it in the garbage. It's probably going to survive. It's the perfect thing to chuck in front of an amp that's going to be incredibly, incredibly loud. There are other microphone designs like ribbon microphones, certain ribbon microphones, maybe condensers that just cannot take the volume, but a lot of dynamic microphones will take it no problem. So an SM57 is a really, really good choice. Another example of a dynamic mic might be something like a Sennheiser E609, which is another reasonably inexpensive choice. You can theoretically hang them off the front of the speaker cabinet like that if you didn't have a mic stand. I don't mind this. It's not my number one choice, but there are really a lot of options for recording guitars. If you want to talk about other dynamic mics, Sennheiser MD421, there would be a Shure SM7. I mentioned other types of microphones like ribbon microphones, condenser microphones. All of those things can work really, really well, and I've had amazing success with those. I think the number one thing to consider when you're getting started into this, or if you're pulling a mic out of a cabinet to record something in a studio, is just make sure that the mic itself can handle the volume that the amplifier is going to put out. Let's go back to the SM57. So another characteristic of this microphone is that it is a cardioid microphone, which if you're not familiar with mics, it means it picks up sound from the front and less sound as the mic is tilted off axis. So if you're speaking to the side of it or in the back of it, it picks up sound in kind of like a heart shape. So the clearest, best sound is going to be right in the front of this microphone. There are other microphone designs that will pick up in a figure 8 shape or omnidirectional shape, meaning to pick up everything around. One of the positive characteristics of a cardioid microphone is that it picks up predominantly what's in front of it and ignores a lot of what else is around it. So if you're in a really reflective space or a room that's quite small, it doesn't sound very good, the influence of the room on the sound will be lessened than if you were using other microphone designs. So cardioid mic, dynamic mic, it's a really, really good start. Let's move over to the speaker cabinet. So I have a 4x12 speaker cab here loaded with vintage 30 speakers, which is my preference for most things that I record. I do love the sound of greenbacks. I love the sound of creambacks, but this is a really good cab to demonstrate with for today. Two things about the anatomy. We've got the dust cap, which is this section right here, the little domey part in the middle of the speaker. And we've got the cone, which is this larger part around the outside. We are going to be throwing the mic somewhere in this vicinity. So what position works best? We'll go over to another cab that's mic'd in the other room with a Dynamount on it to move the mic around and we can hear what it sounds like. But I need to point out first, the absolute brightest part of the speaker is right here in the dead center of the dust cap. An SM57 is by design kind of a bright sounding microphone. So with that knowledge, what we can do is find a position that complements both the bright part of the speaker, the brightest part of the speaker, and the bright microphone to get a balanced sound. And I think that is the thing that I'm most looking for when I'm recording, well, just about anything, but particularly guitars. I want balance. So what we'll find is if we were to put the mic right in the dead center of the speaker, it might sound a bit harsh, a bit nasally, a bit bright. But as we move the microphone away from the center of the dust cap, that harshness will start to mellow out and we'll just start to get that balance. That also happens the further you bring the microphone away from the speaker cabinet and as you tilt the mic left and right. It's my preference to not really rotate the microphone when I record. I like the sound of it straight on, but you can use the fact that a Cardio mic has off-axis coloration, meaning that when you rotate the mic a little bit off center, the frequency response will change. You can use that if you've got a very bright sounding amp that you're trying to mic up and you're looking for a different tonal characteristic. Once again, my preference is straight on, but we'll hear what it sounds like to rotate it as well. My preference also for recording more distorted guitars is to mic reasonably close to the speaker cabinet, but I've had a lot of success with clean sounds or cleaner sounds, moving the microphone further away from the speaker. And in those circumstances, I'll sometimes choose a different sort of microphone like a ribbon mic or a condenser mic or something like that. Let's move over to the cabinet that's mic'd in the other room with the Dynamount on it, and we'll hear what this sounds like. Okay, here we have the mic'd cabinet in my live room. This is a Marshall 4x12 with Vintage 30 speakers. It's the main cabinet I've used for my YouTube videos over the last 6 months or so. You can see I have a little marking in the middle of the speaker, which is a little triangle with the letter C on it, C being center of the cabinet. I also have one slightly off to the left-hand side, which that's the spot that is my preferred place to mic this speaker that I've found over the last couple of years. At the very least, it's a good starting point. It does change a little bit side to side of where it is. But that's a good spot. If I don't have the Dynamount set up or if that's on a different cabinet, then I know this is a good spot to place a 57. So you'll also notice I have the Dynamount software up here as well. This is the software that drives the robot that's on this mic. So we'll be able to see and hear quite clearly what happens to the sound as we move that microphone on the speaker. And I'll just demonstrate how this works. I can click the mic side to side like so, and the mic moves around on the speaker cabinet. I can also move the mic back from the cabinet if I wanted to, and you can see how the software and the microphone both are working basically in the same way at the same time. And I can also tilt this thing as much as I like if I wanted to just go a bit wild and wacky like that. All this stuff is really fun to impress your clients with if you're in the mood to pick up something like this. I just find it's really helpful for when I'm trying to get guitar sounds in the studio. So I'm lucky enough to have one here to use. I've reset the Dynamount so it is dead center of the speaker, right up against the front of the grill. Unlike the cabinet that's sitting next to me at the moment, this cabinet has a speaker grill on it, which means I can't see the speaker inside of it. That's not a huge problem. Just grab yourself a torch. I've got one right here. And use it to shine inside the grill cloth so that you can work out exactly where you're going to place that microphone. I've seen people make little boxes around where the middle of the cone is. I've seen people put X's on there. The little bit of tape is enough for me to just have that as a starting point, and then I can drive the mic around from that position. Let's see what it sounds like. I've reamping some signal from Pro Tools through my Undertone Audio GB tracker. I'm running into the Diesel VH4 module in my rack. And it sounds a little like this. What I said before is you have a bright microphone on a bright speaker, and consequently the sound is quite bright, regardless of how I set the settings on the amplifier itself. I have used that sound before. It's not like an unusable sound, but it is pretty getting on a bit brittle for me and a bit too harsh and nasty. So that's where we can use the positioning of the microphone on the speaker to change it a little bit. Let's see what that sounds like. So I'll go to the Dynamount software. When I click the arrows here on either side, it moves the Dynamount in increments of 5. That's just how I've set it up. So let's hear what that sounds like. I would say that immediately makes a pretty big difference. I've gone from 50, which is the middle, to 40, slightly on the side. I actually am uncertain what the numbers determine. I'm not sure if it's a percentage amount over the entire length of the Dynamount, or if it's measured in, I don't think it's measured in millimeters or anything like that. So that's maybe a little bit irrelevant. but you can at least see on the speaker like cab how little that's shifted and how much the sound changes. I'll put the guitar back on and we'll put the mic back in the middle of the speaker. So it's a big change. It rolls off that top end. What I'm looking for is balance in the guitar sound. I know I've said that already, but that helps to find the most balanced part. Let's keep moving the microphone to the side and hear what it sounds like. Like I said, where that little bit of tape is roughly where I like the guitar sound to be. It is a little dark now, but I find that it allows me to add a bit more top end in the amp if I need to. It means that if I'm using brighter amps, it just mellows those tones off a little bit more. I'm not so fussy with this stuff where it has to only be in the same position all the time, and often it's there, and I'll just move it in slightly from there, maybe one click, so from 25 to 30. That might just open up the top end a little bit. I've got a couple of clients, sorry, I've got one client in particular who really like a brighter guitar sound, and this is too mellow for them. So all I do, click it over. Again, rather than changing any settings on the amp, I just move the mic, and then it ends up being in a position that's a little brighter and a little clearer. They're younger than me, so maybe they like a bit more of that nasally top end. We can keep going with moving this mic, and in fact, I'll do that right now. So that's as far as I can get the Dynamount off to the side of the speaker cone. I mean, I could readjust the Dynamount on its position and get it further off, but in that position, it sounds quite blanketed to me. So you can think about that in however you like. You can think of it, it's got more low end in it. You can think of it, it's got less top end in it. They both, I guess, are true. For me, the clarity in the signal is just gone, and the immediacy of the notes is gone. So that just isn't really working for me. Maybe if I had a very, very bright guitar sound, something like that might be appropriate. But I would say for most things that I do, that's not really going to cut the mustard. So let's start with that, and I'll shift it all the way back to the center of the cone. Yeah, it's a very, very different sound. And once again, I think that right where it is at the moment, in the middle, is a bit too harsh and shrill for me. Let's put this mic back to roughly in the position that I like. I might actually bring it in a tiny bit today, because I think with this particular guitar sound, it feels a little covered. So I'll bring it to 30 instead of 25. Sounds pretty good. Let's bring the mic back from the cabinet and hear what that sounds like. So we've moved the mic back quite a ways now. It's obviously a little difficult to see exactly how far back that is on the camera. I'd say it's like maybe a foot, maybe a little bit less than that. In that current position, I noticed that the top end has gotten a little bit more bright, and it feels like the whole thing's a little bit scooped, but still has this like almost quacky mid-range in it. The tone has changed a lot. That may be okay in certain guitar sounds. I think for this thing, I like the immediacy of the note, so that's not really going to cut it. But I've had a lot of situations with cleaner guitar sounds where just pulling the microphone back from the speaker mellows some of the top end in a really nice way. And again, using a different sort of mic can help with that as well. So I'm not saying this is a bad way of miking a speaker cab. It's probably not the way I would mic the speaker cab for this specific sound, but you know, whatever works for you. Let's roll that back to the front of the cabinet and hear what that sounds like. Yeah, sounds reasonably good to me. One last experiment. Let's tilt the microphone a little bit and hear what that sounds like. I mean, in that position at the moment, we're at fully 90 degrees away from the mic, and it's not even pointing at the front of the mic anymore. It's pointing kind of towards the back of it. You can hear how little sound is coming through compared to where we started. This is probably not how you're going to mic a guitar amp unless you're going for something very, very specific, but you know, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. What is interesting is that you'll notice between the 90 degree angle and maybe like 120, because of where we've positioned the mic on the speaker, like a little bit off to the side, you start to notice that it gets bright for a little bit because we are pointing that mic back into the center of the cone. It's not the sort of thing I really like that much. Once again, I prefer it just to be like straight on, but it's certainly a way of like altering the characteristics of the tone if you wanted to do something like that. Let's zing it back to 90 degrees. That kind of works for me. Before we wrap this video up, I just want to address one little thing that comes up a lot, and I even mentioned it in the start of this video. The best place to mic a speaker cabinet is somewhere around where the dust cap here meets the cone. On the cabinet that we mic'd up with the Dynamount, the little piece of tape that is to the left of the sticker that says C on it, like roughly my preferred spot, that sounds really great, and it is pretty much in that spot on that Vintage 30 speaker. But it's a little bit tricky because not all dust caps are the same size. Like if you look at the dust cap on a Celestion T75 speaker, it's quite a lot bigger. I think I've got some greenbacks that have maybe even a smaller dust cap that's on this one, maybe if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm not 100% certain if it's magic created by the fact that there's glue on that right point. I don't know if it's just the fact that the proximity from the center of the dust cap to the outer edge of the cone is like correct. I guess I just treat this as like a really good starting point, and I move the mic according to that, not just be militant in that like that is the only place to mic the speaker. So just something to consider when you're doing this for yourself. Okay, so that's how I like to mic up a guitar cabinet in the studio. Once again, there are a lot of different ways of doing this, a lot of different mic positions, a lot of different mic choices, and also incorporating two mics into a guitar recording can be a really great way of getting a guitar sound as well. I would say depending on what level you're at with recording, just start with one mic and get it in the right position, and it's probably going to be enough. I still do that all the time, even though I've got a slew of microphones of different brands and types and price ranges to use. One mic, and you know, in my experience and my preference, an SM57 is enough. You'll have a fat time. If you like the way that this guitar amp sounds and you're interested to hear this in your own space, I've made 6 impulse responses of this setup, which I've made available on my website, hammerspacerecording.com, and you can go over there and download them for free right now. So thank you very much for joining me for another video, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.